This is Ryan. I don't know what to think about this game. I really don't, man. I have no clue what Notre Dame is going to do defensively. I have no clue what they're going to do offensively. I have no clue what the fire of this team is going to be or not. What the focus of this team is going to be or not. I just there's so many unknowns right now about this football team that I just don't know what to expect on Saturday. But what I do know is this team needs to start turning the corner because outside of Ohio State, you have not really hit the meat of your schedule yet. And if you think Marshall and Cal are tough to beat, wait till the next three opponents that Notre Dame has to face. And so the biggest thing is we need to see Notre Dame. They don't have to come out and beat Cal 50-6. They don't. We just need to see things to say, okay, you can build on that. And that's going to help you get going in all three phases of the game. Biggest thing, yes, a W is important, but beyond a W, we need to see that this team is starting to turn a corner this weekend.
So, Brian, in my opinion, if Notre Dame plays to their absolute best ability and we start to get a little bit of a turnaround, this game should never be in question, in my opinion, right? Like, that's what I want to see. Is if Notre Dame wins this football game, I don't want it to ever, even if it ends up being a close game, I don't want it to ever be a game where you're just like, well, that was not even, that was a close game. Like, that was a back and forth. I want this to be a game where you're just like, Notre Dame had that the whole time. And it was obvious who the better, more talented team on the field was during that contest. So that's what I am looking forward to seeing. I would describe this team right now as enigmatic right now, right? Like, they're a little bit of an enigma as we currently sit, Brian. Like, I think that I still have hope that they can hit near their ceiling. And if they can, I think they can be a good football team. But also there's potential that on Saturday we're going to see a bad football team, right? Like it's so volatile to what they could potentially do this weekend. But for me, this one can't ever be a contest, right? Like if you really are turning the corner, Notre Dame needs to come into this game from start to finish, and you need to be like, yep, Notre Dame's a better football team than that team. Like, no matter what the score ends up being, and obviously Notre Dame needs to win, but whether it is a 7-point game or a 20-point win, whatever that it comes in between, Notre Dame needs to outclass Cal for me to really feel like, hey, they're trending in the right direction. There's some growth this week.
Even if it's not a blowout, we need to see those things because I mean, look, they could have a blowout where you just say like they had one side of the ball stepped up and forced some turnovers, or just Cal made some dumb mistakes or some breaks go their way. We've seen that stuff before. They could have a convincing win, and I could still look at this and say, not a lot has changed, really. Man, they hit a couple throws here and there, like we talked about last week. If Tyler Buckner hits that throw at the end of the half, and if he hits that throw on 3rd and 8 in the fourth quarter, Notre Dame wins by 10+ points. But does that really change anything about what's going on with this football team just because they had a couple plays? No, the overall struggles, it would have just been like you just had better dudes than they had, and that's why you won the game. It doesn't fix anything in regard to getting ready to go win the rest of your games, and that's the key for me.
And we've been there too many times before in the past, right? Like, not even talking about this coaching staff, talking about the previous coaching staff. Like, there has been too many games to even recollect on where Notre Dame didn't play very well. But the bottom line was that they were just more talented, and they end up more out-talenting people. Like, I don't want to see a team that gets out-talented, Brian. Like, I know that they're a more talented team than Cal Berkeley is. Like, I want them to be able to enter and leave this game with the unquestion that they were the most ready and better football team from start to finish than Cal. That's what my standards are. Even though Notre Dame's sitting here at 0-2 and just had a terrible loss to Marshall last week, I still have those standards. And I know that Marcus Freeman still has those standards, right? So, like, that's what I want to see this week, is that you need to outclass this team, in my opinion. Like, there should be, especially with so much adversity hitting you, man. Like, this is when you show character.
If you don't now, then it's just not
When's
there.
It going to happen? It's not going to happen, probably.
No, this team just doesn't have it. I mean, if you don't show it this weekend, I mean, like we've said, look, this is not the time to overreact and panic, and fans overreact and bench this guy, bench that guy, play this guy, put all the freshmen in. Like, it's like, all right, come on, folks, like pump the brakes on that. But if you see the same lack of energy and emotion this week that we saw last week, then it's like, okay, there's a character problem here, and we can either continue to go down this path and hope that the veteran guys fix it, or we can say we're going to fix it now ourselves, and we're going to play the younger guys that still want to be out there and play with passion. So I hope we don't have to get to that point. I hope we'll see the guys like Jarrett Patterson and Isaiah Foskey and Jason Adamiola look in the mirror and say, hey, it's my job to go out there and fix this thing. And then you hope that the coaching staff doesn't have the biggest thing for me is I just want to know that the coaching staff doesn't have let's just keep doing what we're doing and just we'll get better at it kind of thing,
Right.
because that's not the answer. And the reason I keep thinking that is because that's what we've seen the previous 12 years. I had hoped that was gone, but
Mm-hmm.
we're going to find out. And we're going to find out because there's still enough people around the program that are from the previous staff that you got to wonder, like, is that just kind of part of that culture that needs to be eradicated or not? And I hope that the answer to that is or not, that
Yep.
they eradicate it themselves and come out this week with a little bit of an attitude and a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. That's really what I need to see this weekend, Ryan.
Everyone needs this game, man. Like the coaching staff needs this game. The fans need this game. The players need this game. Everybody, and the people that write about it every day need this game, man. Like,
Yeah.
Everyone needs this. They do. This is and especially for obviously the coaching staff and the players. Like they need this game, man. This is about to be a fractured confidence at this point, Brian. Like you just got beat by a team that is far and below your caliber. They are an inferior football team. You just played against Marshall. They beat you. You're sitting here now with a fractured sense of confidence. And it, again, adversity shows character.
Right.
And I think that my biggest thing is that one thing that we were loving the whole offseason, we were like, wow, Marcus Freeman and this staff, confidence and competition. Like those are the two things that were kind of exuded throughout the players, how they talked, press conferences, everything. And if you lose this game, like it's going to fracture the confidence completely at this point. As if 0-2 isn't a bad enough of start. If you lose to back-to-back teams that are just not as good as you, and that is terrible for this team morale. So they need to win this football game. Everyone needs to win this football game.
Yeah, and
this would be a little gift for everyone.
The only reason that they would lose this game, Ryan, is if this team just doesn't have that character. I mean, because if the Marshall game, if the Marshall game doesn't get it fixed for you mentally, then what's losing to Cal going to do for you? It just means you don't have it. You know what I mean? And like I said, your character will be exposed this weekend, one or the other. You're going to say like, you know what, these kids, look, they didn't get off to a good start. Some things didn't go their way, but they all rallied together. They came together as a team. They came together as players. They came together as coaches. Say, hey, look, we got to fix this, right? And they get it done. And that's what we're gonna find. And it's going to be about, can Coach Freeman push the right buttons? Can Tommy Rees say, hey, look, what we've been doing isn't working. Let's figure out, what we need to do, whether it's personnel changes, whether it's how you go about your business and practice changes, whether it's how you're putting your game plan together to make it a little bit more complementary, and make sure it works together and you're building to different things. Those things are all on the table, and we're going to find out this week what kind of answers they came from. And, so we talked about, Ryan, what do we want to see this weekend? I think for me, before we even get into the specific keys to success, so what do we want to see this weekend? Number one, this team comes out and plays with fire. Number one.
Yes.
I want to see a higher level of execution, because a higher level of execution means you're starting to push the right buttons in practice, that you're going to start doing a better job. I want to see the stars start to play like stars, right? And I can somewhat excuse Jarrett Patterson not playing like a star because he's not 100%. He just flat out not. And so I don't expect him to look like 100% healthy, informed Jarrett Patterson. But what we can't see are the mental mistakes, because your mind is not, you didn't hurt your mind this offseason. You hurt your foot, okay?
Right.
And so make sure you're seeing that. But with Foskey, Jason Adamiola, Cam Hart, Maris Luafau, Brandon Joseph, who was great against Ohio State, didn't play great against Marshall. All of them have to say, hey, look, this is up to us, right? Michael Mayer on offense. Blake Fisher, right? Incredibly talented kid. I know he's young. I know this is putting a lot on him, but dude, you got to go out there and play like you're the baddest dude on the block, because in reality, you are. Believe in yourself to do that, and then just go play, man. And then the veterans got to show leadership. You can't be having mental mistakes and technique and assignment mistakes from your sixth-year senior guard, right? Your All-American tight end can't be a negative as a blocker, right? Like, I mean, that's pride. Those are the things that are missing. And so that's what I need to see from this football team.
I want to see looseness, man. Like I want to see, we've talked about this a ton. We think that there is some inconsistencies from a just understanding what's expected of you, right? Comfort in the scheme. And those things can make you tight. And I feel like right now, this is a very mechanical team over the first 2 games, right? Like there's some good to it because you're in the right spots most of the time, but I just don't see a team that's letting loose, right? Like I don't see athletes being athletes.
Yeah.
I don't see that right now, right? So for me, it's can we get this team loose? Can we get them ready to compete? And we can let them go, man. Like at the end of the day, I want to see, and I know we're not getting super in depth yet, but I want to see 4 down and just Al Golden says, just go, man. Just go.
Hey,
Just be
Isaiah,
yourself.
see that number 13? Get him.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Forget all this other stuff. Get them. You know, let me see that your one move works first before I take you to move number 2. Right? And so, you know, those are the things that I need to see. You know, I want to see Jason Adamiola, man, stop with all the, you know, like just go play, man. Go make plays, right? You know, it's all of that. I want to see this team play with fire. I want to see this team execute better. I want to see noticeable adjustments. I don't want to see just a better execution of what you did last week, because better executing what you did last week can beat Cal, but it doesn't prepare you to go win the next week, the next week, the next week, the next week, and the next week, right? Just means you out-talented a team that you flat out should out-talent. You know, Cal's got some good players. Cal is ascending. If they can keep recruiting like they're recruiting right now the last 2 years, they're ascending. They're well coached. They've added some really good offensive skill players, and, you know, J. Michael Sturdivant and Maven Anderson and Jaden Ott and guys like that, you know. Good. Keep doing that, right? But they're not now a team that should beat Notre Dame unless Notre Dame plays bad, right? Notre Dame should be able to out-talent them, and so it can't just be that you out-talented them and you played with fire. It needs to be you do that, but I need to see some discernible changes in how the linebackers are playing, which tells me they're changing how they're preparing them during the week of practice. I need to see the wide receivers playing with more speed. Not that they don't have speed, that they're playing with that speed, which tells me that they're changing how they're installing the practice aspect of it. You know, they're changing how the route combinations are going. I need to see some of the younger players. I need to see, if I don't see Eli Raridan and Tobias Merriweather this year, like this week, like in quarter numero uno, I'm going to lose it in the postgame show. I'm just telling you, I don't win or lose. I'm going to lose it in the postgame show, because maybe you can beat Cal without them, but you're going to need them moving forward. And now's the time to get them going. And there's been nothing that you've seen from the veterans should make you trust them more than the young players, right? Because what you have seen from them is this dude can't block. This dude's not fighting for the ball. This guy has no idea how to win on routes, right? So, I mean, dude, the freshmen can do that, but they're more talented and they're bigger. So play them. And so if they do play them, that's a sign to me that they figured out we just got to let loose, man. We got to stop trying to be perfect and all this stuff and just put our dudes out on the field and give them an opportunity to go make plays. I need to see Chris Tyree being more of a focal point of the offense, because if they're not, then it tells me they haven't learned anything. They've cleaned up some stuff, and so they beat Cal. But as I've always said, Ryan, and it doesn't look, my belief doesn't change whether you're 0-2 or 2-0. And this is what makes Nick Saban so great. It's not about the end result. It has to be about the process. Because if it's just about the end result, then you convince yourself that 10-3 with really close losses to Clemson and Stanford, and then a bowl loss against Ohio State where we're missing a lot of players. If you're just about the results, then you look at that and say, no, we're good. We're just going to play a little harder and coach a little better, which is word for word what Brian Kelly said after the 2015 season. So you don't fire your defensive coordinator that everybody on the planet, except apparently you and him, knows is not getting the job done. You don't make any staff changes to your strength program, which everybody around the program was complaining about going into that season, because you just look at the result. It's got to be about the process. And if you just look at the result, and the result is a W this weekend, then it doesn't necessarily mean the process is setting you up to then go have success in future weeks. And so to me, that's why it's not just about getting the win. It's about realizing that there are flaws within how you're going about your business, whether it be personnel, whether it be practice, whether it be play calling, play design, game plan design, play calling on both sides of the ball. There are changes that need to be made. And if you're not willing to make those and all you do is clean up some stuff, then it tells me this team didn't learn their lesson. And that's my biggest fear coming out of this game. And on the opposite, the thing I'm most hoping that we see fixed this weekend.
On your your excerpt there on the process, Brian. I mean, this is slightly a hyperbolic statement, but it's one that I actually do subscribe to a lot. I was always taught, and I try to teach the players that I coached as well, that you do all your thinking during practice every day of the week, right? When it comes to the game, that should be programmed at that point, right? Like you should be so comfortable in what your responsibility is in whatever scheme you're working in, whatever play you're running, whatever, that you just go, man. Like, again, like we both have said it already, you need to play loose, man. You need to play free, and not free of out of structure, out of the system, doing your own thing. Freelancing, free is in you're comfortable and you're able to accentuate and show off your athleticism. Because like the biggest thing that I always come back to, Notre Dame has talent, man, and they have speed, and they have a lot of really good football players on this team. Have they showed it enough in the first 2 games of the season? Absolutely not. But again, I would say that there's a process issue over the first 2 games. And it's not even shade at the coaching staff. For whatever reason, the team did not play loose, in my opinion, during the first 2 weeks. So that is continuing to emphasize this. That's what I want to see this game. There are little parts, and that comes into everything. All my overlying keys that I want to see, whether that is getting a wide receiver in space, getting Chris Tyree on the edge, letting your linebackers get downhill and go. Like all those things come back to one simple thing. Go, man. Be loose, be explosive, be athletic. The reason that you are in South Bend, Indiana is because when you were playing football, you showed us that you had this athletic upside and you are a really good football player, right? Right now, they're playing too much like they don't want to make mistakes. Forget about mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Make them fast ones. That's the end all be all for me is I want to see if there is mistakes, they need to be fast ones. They need to be aggressive ones. I feel like people are afraid to make mistakes right now.